The crystalline towers of Zephyria Prime gleamed under 3 violet moons, their bioluminescent surfaces pulsing with the rhythm of 1,000 alien heartbeats. Within the highest spire, Admiral Zarkoth, the deaf dragon who had conquered 17 star systems, sat in his private chamber, wings folded tight against his obsidian scales, preparing for another solitary meal. Jassy hurried through the corridor, her infant son Daniel clutched against her chest, wrapped in thermal blankets that shimmered with embedded nanotechnology. She was late, terribly late for her shift in the Admiral's kitchens. The baby cooed softly, his tiny fingers grasping at the identification chip that hung around her neck. "SHH Daniel," she whispered, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air of the upper levels. "We can't afford another mark on my record." The incident from last week still haunted her. Admiral Zarkoth had been in the middle of an important diplomatic dinner when Daniel's crying had echoed through the ventilation system. Though the Admiral couldn't hear the sound, his hearing had been destroyed in the Battle of Crimson Nebula. His guests had been mortified. Jassy had nearly lost her position, her only source of income since arriving on this alien world as a refugee from Earth's collapse. She pressed her palm against the biometric scanner outside the Admiral's private dining hall. The door hissed open, revealing the massive chamber beyond. The Admiral sat at the far end of a table carved from a single piece of meteorite, his elongated snout barely visible above the steaming dishes that floated on anti-gravity platforms. Jassy slipped inside, hopping to reach the service entrance unnoticed, but Daniel had other plans. The baby suddenly shrieked, not with distress but with pure delight. His pudgy hand had discovered the emergency beacon on Jassy's uniform, and the bright red light had captivated him completely. The sound echoed through the vast chamber. Admiral Zarkoth's head snapped up immediately. Though he couldn't hear the cry, his other senses were preternaturally sharp. The vibrations in the floor, the shift in air pressure, the slight tremor in the anti-gravity fields all alerted him to the disturbance. His golden eyes, each the size of Jassy's fist, locked onto her. She froze, terror coursing through her veins. But then something extraordinary happened. Daniel, still clutching the beacon, began to wave his free hand in the air. His movements weren't random, they were deliberate, rhythmic, almost like signing. The baby had been watching the alien interpreters who visited the kitchens, learning without anyone realizing it. Admiral Zarkoth's expression shifted from annoyance to shock. His massive head tilted, studying the infant with newfound intensity. Daniel's tiny fingers formed shapes that approximated draconian sign language, the ancient communication method that only the military elite still learned. "Greetings," Daniel's hands seemed to say, though his coordination was clumsy. "Friend, light, beautiful." Jassy's heart hammered in her chest. She had no idea her son had absorbed any of this. Daniel was barely 9 months old, far too young for such complex cognitive functions, at least too young by human standards. The Admiral rose from his seat, his towering form casting shadows across the entire chamber. Each movement was deliberate, controlled as he approached them. Jassy wanted to run, to protect her child from this predator who had incinerated entire fleets with his plasma breath, but her legs wouldn't obey. Zarkoth knelt before them, bringing his enormous head down to Daniel's level. His scales clinked softly, like distant wind chimes. The dragon's clawed hand extended, palm up, in a gesture of peace. Daniel giggled and reached out, his tiny hand barely covering one of the Admiral's obsidian talons. Then Zarkoth began to sign fluid, graceful movements that spoke volumes. Jassy had learned basic draconian signs during her orientation, enough to understand what he was saying. "Little one sees what others miss," the Admiral signed. "In my 60 years of silence, no one has tried to speak my language, not subordinates, not diplomats, not even my own flightkin. They use translators, voice boxes, holographic intermediaries, but this child, this human child sees me." Tears welled in Jassy's eyes. "I'm so sorry, Admiral, I didn't know where else to leave him. The daycare facility won't accept." Zarkoth raised a claw, silencing her. He signed again, his movements gentle. "No apologies. Your offspring has done what the greatest minds in the Galactic Council could not. He has reminded me that disability need not mean isolation." The Admiral returned to his table, but this time he gestured for Jassy to join him. Hesitantly, she approached, Daniel still in her arms. "Last week," Zarkoth signed as plates materialized before her, "I nearly dismissed you. I thought you disrespectful, careless, but now I understand. You were simply trying to survive, to protect your child in a universe that has become hostile to humans. I know something of that struggle. He tapped his ear ridge where scarred tissue marked where his hearing organs had once been. When I lost this, my fleet abandoned me. They said a deaf dragon could not lead, but I proved them wrong. I learned to read vibrations, to sense electromagnetic fields, to see what they could not. Your son, he has that same gift. He sees beyond what is spoken. Daniel babbled happily, still making approximations of signs. Zarkoth watched with what could only be described as affection. I have a proposal, the Admiral signed. Remain here as my personal liaison. Teach your son both languages, human and draconian. In return, I will ensure his education, his safety, and your prosperity. The galaxy needs more beings who can bridge the gaps between species, between abilities, between worlds. Jassy felt tears streaming down her face. Why would you do this for us? Zarkoth's golden eyes softened. Because your son did the unthinkable. He saw a monster and chose to say hello. In this age of intergalactic war and xenophobia, that is the most revolutionary act of all. As Daniel reached out again, his small hand touching the Admiral's snout, Jassy realized that sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected sources. In a universe that had taken everything from her, a deaf dragon and a babbling baby had just given her hope. And perhaps, just perhaps, they had given each other something even more precious: understanding.